Hello, my name is Adrienne Bogus, and like Holly said, I am a CASAS Tech Support and Trainer, and I will be going over our first part of our outline, which will be pre-post test monitoring and 12 hours of instruction. I will be doing a live demo, so I'll be sharing my screen. I will be going off camera right now, and then I'm going to share my screen with you. So I think we're all familiar with the TOPSpro Enterprise screen. This is your screen. And just to cover some bases, there's many ways of checking to see for pre-post testing, to see if your student has achieved a pre and a post and achieved a gain. For today's demonstration, we're going to focus mainly on your CAEP reports. So I'm going to go up here to reports, and your CAEP reports will be found in the state category under California. One of the best reports to run for checking student pre and post and student gains is the student gains report. Just so everyone knows, I am working in the Rolling Hills Adult School Simulator today, so all of the information that you are seeing is not real information. So you notice I went in here, I didn't do any of my filters. You do have all of these filter options under the report setup navigator for your student gains report. If you want to filter by class instance, if you want to filter by class enrollments, program enrollments, additional assessments to see what COAPs have been administered and passed. These are all different categories that you can use to filter your report to what you would like it to be. Once your report has generated, and again, I generated it just as is, you'll notice this is the student gains report. And if you want just a quick glimpse, you can just see real quickly if it says yes, preliminary completed level, this is indicating that the student has indeed had a pretest, has indeed had a post-test, and had a gain. So for this instance, this student here, we can see all of their test history. And as you can see, this is Rolling Hills Adult School Simulator. So someone has already put in a test for a future test, which hasn't happened yet. But we can see here that on 11/10/2023, the fictitious student took a 985L and they received a 224 and they had a gain of 6 points. So from this 983 with a score of 218, they went up 2 levels from 983 to 985. But they also went up 1 NRS level from 5 to 6. Now this student got a gain for their listening. As we noticed, they also had reading and they also got a gain for their reading, but you can only have one paired score that gets a gain unless the student has citizenship or COAPs. COAPs are civic objectives, additional assessments. So you can use this test here, or this report, I'm sorry, and you can quickly see who's had the gain, who has not, maybe who's had a loss. So this student here has taken a few tests and they've gone down. So this student would need to be maybe addressed and brought to a lower level of instruction. With these types of reports, you'll notice we have page 2 of 55. There are ways to customize it outside of TOPSpro Enterprise. You can always export your document as PDF or as an Excel spreadsheet. If you're very savvy with Excel, you can export it as an Excel spreadsheet, and you can always customize your Excel spreadsheet to how you would like it to be, how you would like it to look, and so forth. You can also print this page if you'd like to print it. If you decided that you don't want to go back to the main report and you want to adjust your settings, you can do so in your layout settings. You can click this tab here, and this brings you essentially back to that report page that we saw. And here is where you can adjust it if need be. You maybe don't want to see the student's name first. You want to adjust the sort order. You want to adjust the color, or you want to run it by class. You can do that right from here. and then you would just apply. So just for an example, if I wanted my report to be green instead of blue, I could click on green, I would hit apply. It will regenerate the page from here. I don't have to go back to the reports page, and now my document is green. And it says new layout settings were applied. And if I click on that and I get rid of my new layout settings, it brings me right back to how the report was originally generated. Now, another nice attribute to the TE reports that we offer is if we do go back, and I'm going to close my pages, and we're looking for those pre and post tests, let's look at a different avenue. Let's look for pre and post tests, but let's look under test results this time. And we can also look under test history. And we can go to student test summary. This isn't in your CAEP reports, but it is another option. Now, again, you have a plethora of filters that you can apply. Maybe I just want to run this by a certain class. I would select my class, and this will pull up which classes you have. You would unselect all of these, and maybe you just want to run it for a select few that you're wanting to look at. And maybe in those classes, you're only looking for a specific form. So maybe I want to go to my assessment forms, and maybe I don't want to see any appraisals. I only want to see if these students took a reading test and if they passed. So here I can go under the modality filter funnel and click on the funnel, and I can select reading, math, listening. So you can really drill down your reports and make them customizable to what you want to see, what you want to run. So I've got it for these class instances that I've selected. World history and math fundamentals. So I'm going to undo math because odds are there's no reading test with that one. Now, if I go back to my general settings page under my navigator, there are other options available. If you see a square under your program years, you can only select one year, I'm sorry, multiple years. So you can select multiple years with a square, my apologies. And so if I wanted to run this for the last 2 years, I could run it for the last 2 years. As you can see, we have a future year here because again, we're working in the simulator. So I'm going to run it for the current program year. And the flip side to the square is if you see a circle for right here, you can only run it for one program year. I can run it by active students or completed students. Again, I can filter for which program I would like to run it for. My report sort order, the color. So I can show the hour types, the types before the test, the hours since the test, or both. I'm going to select both. I'm going to leave it at class because I selected the class instance. So for class enrollment, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to select tests instead. So I get all of the tests because sometimes students go between classes and I want to see what their tests were. Now, if I like my settings, I'm happy with these settings, I want to keep these settings, I can always edit my schema. So if I go up to my schema, I can name this to be class instance report, and I can save it. So now if I come back to this report and I want to find my class instance report, I go back here and it will take me back to my settings. So even when I exit out, if I go back to my student test summary, I go over to my schema, I click the drop down arrow, I can either go back to the default or I can go back to the class instance. The default was set the way it was because I haven't closed out the page, but that's just a helpful tip. I'm going to go ahead and generate the report. So the student test summary is exactly that. It will give you essentially the score of the student and how many tests they've taken for that class. So this particular student is active. On this date, they took a CAEP and they passed it. And this was the course they took. We have 5 pages because we narrowed it down by class. This was again a CAEP. So for these classes, they obviously took COAPs as their reading, which I'm not sure. Here we go. Here's the reading. So here we can see all of the test history for this student. We can see that they took this test on this date and they got this score. And then we can see they took the next assigned test on this date and they went up. If you see an asterisk, that means that obviously they scored too low for it to register and the pass as a COAP. But this is another quick way to see if they've had a pre-test, if they've had a post-test, when they took those, and if they need another one. If the student had scored lower and their next assigned test would have been back to an 81 RX, then you would want to address their instruction and try and help them as best you can to get that gain. So those are a couple of the pre-post-test monitoring reports. Another good report is this. This report is not in the teacher portal. The teacher portal does have the skills profile, the individual skills profile, as well as competency performance and standards. I believe it also has a learning gains report, but I'd have to look into that. Another good report that you can run to monitor your students, and this also applies for the 12 plus hours that we're going into next, is your pay points report. Now, I'm sure a lot of you have heard of the pay points report. If you haven't, this is a really great report to run to check to see what your students are missing. So I'm going to close these tabs, and I do apologize if I do go on mute. I am having a little bit of a head cold, so I do apologize if I go on mute once in a while. So for your pay points report, you would go to reports, and you would go to your state reports, California, and we're going to go down to our pay points. Now, in the pay points report, I like to set certain parameters that help me identify students who are missing their pay point that they can achieve and what that is. And I do that by looking at the monitor. So we're going to go down to report selection under your navigator. Now you'll notice all of these are selected but the monitor. So I always select the monitor because I think it's a very good attribute to seeing what students need, and I'll show you why in a second. Then I'll go back to my general settings. Again, this is a simulator. My current program year is set for 24-25, so I'm going to switch that. And here's where we have those circles. As you notice, I can only select one. So I'm going to scroll down a little bit. Again, these are just all filters that you can apply and customize it how you would like. This is the monitor. So the monitor is include dropped or qualified students, only dropped. Maybe I want to see the ones who qualified. Maybe I want to see both. So I'm going to click on both. And only learners that have available or attainable pay points, I'm going to uncheck that because if they're attainable, it's not going to show me what they're missing. And then I'm going to go ahead and generate. So this is your pay point summary. This is a summary that everybody usually will see when you first run this report, and it has your audit and your flags. The reason I like this monitor, which is the one that we selected, and as you can see, it's still working on it. The spinning cogwheel means it's still processing the report, but I'll go ahead and click on the pay points monitor. I do apologize. It should go through pretty quickly. And if this happens, if your report is too large or it's taking too long to run, we can always go back to the report and drill down and filter for a specific class, a specific program. This one looks like it's taking a little bit longer than it should. So I'm going to let that run in the background and keep an eye on it, but I'm going to go back to my pay points monitor, and this one's still running, which is nice. But I can go back to this one, and I'm going to make this a little less of a large report, for lack of a better term. I'm going to go and just click for certain classes. Or maybe I just want to look for certain students. So to have this go a little quicker, I'm just going to randomly select classes. Go up here. Let me check this before I do that. It's still generating. So I'm going to generate a new report, which, as you can see, got rid of that old report, and now we're generating this one. So you see how much quicker those check marks came up? I filtered down my report to make it more manageable, and so the system was able to acquire the data faster. So here, I'm going to go to our pay points monitor, and this is where the 12 plus hours of instruction for California agencies is very important. If your student has a pre-test and they have a post-test and they have a gain, but you're still seeing this as an asterisk, odds are it's because they're missing their hours. And I'll show you how to check for that. So here's your pay points monitor report. It's a really great report to monitor how the student is doing. It also is a great way to see the pre-test, the post-test, and if they had a level gain. So this student got a completed data set. They have a Y for their data set because they went from a level 5 to a level 6, and they had a gain of 6. So this is another good report. Again, we can export as an Excel, as a PDF. You can print it. You can save it to your device and share it through email if you would like to. Now over here is DR. That is your drop reason. So when you see a 15B, what does that mean? Well, if we want to know what 15B means and O2 means, we can jump to the last page where there's the legend. The quickest way to jump to your last page is if you go up to your pages. I'm unable to see any of that after it generates. You may have to check your permissions, or we may have to check your filters, but you can send us an email. If you see the circle with the arrow pointing to the right with the line, that's going to jump me to my last page. Then I'm going to scroll up just a little bit. And here is my drop reasons legend. So drop reason 15B, incomplete civic participation outcome dataset. So what that means for the student that we were just looking at, they have taken or they're enrolled in a citizenship or an EL civics class, and they have not taken a COAP. So this means that they are enrolled in a civic participation class that they have yet to complete their test, or they have completed their test and they didn't pass it. One of the number one reasons people are dropped is the 02, less than 12 hours of instruction. And here you can also see the instructional hours right here as well. This student has done really well. They have 2 pay points. They are enrolled in the high school diploma program. They are adult secondary education as their level. They have their data set, so they have their 12 hours minimum to get that set. They have a pre-test with a gain. Now you'll notice that they don't have a post-test. That's because they earned their high school diploma. They completed the course. And so because they completed the course and they got ABE level 6, the student gets 2 pay points for completion of the course, because essentially that is the highest gain that you can have, is completion. You really, if you complete your high school diploma, high school equivalency, or GED, high set, that is your level gain. So here are some more drop reasons. No gender will be dropped for no gender if they have that, but as you can see, most of them are less than 12 hours. This student has less than 12 hours, but they only have a pre-test, so we can always check to see, okay, they have 6 hours. If you want to look at a specific student, you can always drill down. So you can right-click on that student. It'll bring up a pop-up window. You can look at the student records and population. You can look at their enrollments. You can look at their class enrollments and their classes, their records. So how many hours they have and what are they missing. If you don't want to use this drill down, you can always just double click on your student. It will bring up your student here. This way you can again print it if you need to, or export it. But if we double click on the student again, it will bring me to the student information, or a student program year information page. And from here, I can see the student records, and more importantly, their class records and their class enrollments. So I need to see what class they're in, and maybe follow up with the teacher as to why the student has less than 6 hours or less than 12 hours and they're not populating. Now, as you can see, the student does have quite a few hours. Again, this is for a future year. I'm looking at the current program year. So whoever created the student in a simulator put all of the record dates, the majority of them, into the 24-25 school year. But this is a good way to check. Another very important thing about student hours is make sure they all have the same hour data. So I'll show you what that means really quickly. I'm just going to close this, and you'll notice you always have pages open. So if I want to go back to my pay points monitor at any time, I can just hop over to the tab. And then if I want to get back to my pay point monitor, I just click on the monitor. It takes me right back there. We do not need, so for federal reporting and for a lot of state reportings, I would say check with your accountability department, because you can, depending on how you're set up with your funding, you could mark them as ABE level 6 completed. So the question was to confirm if they get their diploma or complete their GED, they do not need a post-test. We always want you to try to post-test. That's the complete data set. It helps with showing the state and your funding agencies that the student has progressed in multiple fashions. But we also understand how difficult it is for students to come back and post-test, to get them back, especially after they graduate or complete their GED. They're usually gone. So do you have to post-test them? Technically, no. But again, check with your accountability director as well as your administrator to see how your specific agency is set up. So I would definitely reach out to your accountability director to see what your funding is set up for and what data needs to be collected. So if you see, so we're back on the pay points monitor, and we can see the asterisk. An asterisk means the student has the capability of earning this pay point. The student is able to get this pay point, but they're missing something. That's at 0.2. Okay, we know that this student has less than 12 hours. We can also see that over here under the 4. So if you see an asterisk, that means yes, the student is able to obtain this pay point, but they're missing something. And again, it's usually the 12 hours. And the pay points monitor report is exactly the same as any other TE report. If you hop back over here, you can always edit your schema and save it to however you'd like it to look. If you ever are wondering what certain topics mean in this report, if you click this handy info button up here with the question mark, it brings up what these mean, what pay points summary audit, how to run that report, and what it does, list the state and federal pay points drop reasons. So this is kind of a nice quick help tab that will show you certain reports that you can run and how to run them, the steps to run them, and exactly what they entail. So it's a quick little shot of a glimpse of what is offered for these particular reports. And it's under that info button. And some reports have this info button and some don't. So for this particular Rolling Hills Adult Simulator, I'm going to go check the hours. So another important part is you want to make sure all of your hours are in that same data set. So as we can see, combined attendance, okay, they're putting in daily attendance. That's great. This student here has all daily attendance. And what I mean by attendance record data bank is, I'm sure we've all seen these: student update cumulated, daily, student observation, student test, student update. How TOPSpro Enterprise works, it's going to take the highest number entered. So if you have 100 students, and 80 of those students have daily attendance as their attendance record data entry, and then the other 20 have student update, when you go to run your DIR report and you go to run your end of year reporting, it's only going to take the highest amount. So it will take only the daily attendance and it will omit the student update. So it's very important to make sure they're all in the same data bank. I don't want to save. I'll show you this really quick. A good way to check to see if all of your attendance is in the correct data bank is you can look at your class records lister. So if we go to our class records and I go to, go to records, classes, and then records again. This is going to show me most likely for the 24-25 school year. Oh, no, good. It does have some of these school years. So here I can kind of funnel to see if they're all daily attendance or not. So if I click on my combined attendance, I can always click on my funnel and I can skip to see, okay, how many are daily, or I'm sorry, filter to see how many are daily and how many are update. So as we can see, the majority is daily attendance. I'm not sure if we're going to have any update, but let me filter this down again and take off my daily attendance. Okay, so there are no students in the simulator that are marked under student update hours. That's great. That means that all of the students in the simulator in this agency are marked with daily attendance, and that's what you want. Now, if you still want to check, you can always go through and highlight the others just to make sure. Up, see? Now we have these that are update cumulated, and we have daily hours. So this would be the time where you need to get together with your administrator or with whatever staff helps you put in attendance and collaborate on how you want to do it. Do you want to enter just daily or do you want to enter just update cumulated? I have a, oh,
Would you mind explaining the difference between, as far as the format of reporting, the difference between attendance, update, and update cumulated?
of course. So update cumulated, thank you, Oscar. Update cumulated, so for these, the best example I can give is, let's say this student last week gets 10 hours of attendance and you put it in as a student update cumulated. Next week, they get another 10 hours of attendance. You're not going to put in 10 hours. Student update cumulated means you have to add them together. So from their first record that says 10 hours to the second record of 10 hours, when you're doing your entry, you're going to put in 20 if you're using cumulated. So it's the accumulation of their total hours to date. Daily attendance is exactly that. It's attendance that is put in daily or as much daily as possible. So if your class is on Wednesday, but you have, people putting in data Monday and Tuesday, it's just make sure they put it in daily if they're putting it in daily. So daily attendance is exactly that, same day. Student observation is really not used. This is for when they're meeting with counselors or they're under observation for an EDP or something like that. So this really isn't used. Student test, again, some agencies use this when the student is physically taking their pre-test, their post-test, or their COAPs or their citizenship. If you use this and you use one of the other formats, just know that most likely this is going to be the lower number and you're going to lose all those hours when you go for your end of year reporting. Now, student update. When I was a data manager, it was a smaller school, so this is the one I use. Student update for me was the easiest because it's exactly that. This student gets 10 hours last week. I put 10 hours in under update. They get 10 hours next week. I put 10 hours in next week. I don't have to add it together. The system will add it for me. So the student update is just updating their hours weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, however your system does it is the student update. So it's pretty much anything other than daily attendance. So those are the differences between the different data banks for attendance records. Now, as we can see with our student accumulated records that we have 167. Well, how many daily attendance records did we have? So we have 15,322 daily records of attendance. So when you're running your end of year reports or your data integrity reports, this system is only going to count these 15,322 records. It's not going to count the other records for the student update accumulated because it takes the majority of the records. It's not able at this point to separate them out. So just make sure that when you're entering your attendance that you're entering it all in the same data bank. And this way, because we've had some calls that call in that say my student has 12 hours, but they're not showing up on my student gains report, or they're not showing up as having a pay point, even though they have more than 12 hours. That's because if they have 4 hours accumulated, 4 hours again accumulated, but they have 4 hours in daily, it's only going to count the 4 hours because again, that's accumulated. So it's only going to count that as 4. And it's not going to count the daily because it's a separate data bank, if that makes sense. Does anyone have any questions on class records or pay points or student gains reports or how to check if there's other ways to check for pre-post test monitoring?
So we have one question, if you can actually extend on that. So they're asking, why would there be a problem of reporting two type of hours?
The problem with reporting 2 types of hours is because the TOPSpro Enterprise software only picks up the majority. You can report 2 types of hours. You can show that the student has hours in update. You can show the student has hours in daily. That's completely up to the agency. Just know that at the end of the year, when the system is configuring the total hours, it's only able to configure the majority. It's not able yet to configure and separate them out. It only takes the majority of the hours the student has.
And is there a recommendation for CAEP agencies as far as hours, whether daily, update, or update accumulated?
So I've heard from a couple different users from different agencies in California. Again, my agency was small. We used Update, but I have heard if you're doing importing for attendance that daily is easier. So if you use a third-party import system, but they recommend daily attendance. Really, if you're not using daily attendance, my personal view, I like Update because I don't have to remember to add it. If I'm out sick and I have someone helping me with entering the hours, they don't have to remember to add it up for accumulated. The system will add it for me. So I personally like Update hours if you're going not daily. Let's say you enter your attendance bi-weekly or monthly. I prefer updated. That's just my personal view, but it's really how you want to enter it and how your agency and your system can best collaborate on what everyone likes. I know that was vague. I'm sorry.
No, that's great. Thank you.
And again, if you have further questions, definitely reach out to your accountability director. You can reach out to your CDE representative. If you need to know who that is, you can always call us at the cost. We can help you navigate that. You can always send us an email and we can also help you navigate and find out who your CDE representative is and who your data accountability individual is as well. So if you ever have questions, the best I can recommend is to call your accountability director so you have it in writing. And that way, when you're implementing the process, you know that it's in a line with your accountability. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen if there's no other questions, so Oscar can take over.
All right. Thank you very much. So let me go ahead and enable my screen over here. All right. So the document is loading right now, but you're going to see on the chat box, I'm loading a PowerPoint, and I'm also going to go ahead and share my screen. One second here. All right, so you're going to see this document also posted in the chat box. So as you can see, this is basically the description of our session today. And highlighted in yellow right there, those are the items I'm going to be addressing. So Adrian went ahead and covered pre and post testing monitoring and 12 hours of instruction. I will be covering workplace outcome and transitions. So let me go ahead and start with a PowerPoint here. So give me 1 second here. I'll go ahead and open my PowerPoint here. No, very good. So, all right, very good. So, give me a quick thumbs up if you do see my screen.
Oscar, we see the Word document.
Interesting. Okay, thank you. Give me 1 second then. So let me share. I'm sharing the wrong screen over here. So new share, and you should be able to see my screen now. All right. So
Oscar, oh, perfect. There you go. Sorry, Oscar.
all right. Thank you very much. All right. So everybody sees my PowerPoint presentation, I assume, right?
Yes.
All right. Very good. Thank you. All right. So outcomes and services. So we're going to go ahead and start with outcomes. So just a quick review of what are the areas for your CAEP outcomes. So starting from literacy gains, that's basically your pre and post testing, which Adrian covered. Any units from high school, certification, occupational skills gain, workforce preparation. Then you have your HS diploma, high school diploma. So that's high school diploma, GED, and I said post-secondary, post-testing secondary, anything from college degrees, AA, AS, BA, and BS, graduate studies, training credentials, occupational certification, and apprenticeship. Then you have enter employment, which we all know it's get a job. Those are very important options to select under your entry and update form, retain job, and enter military. Increase wages and get a better job, and then transition, which is basically transition to ASC and post-secondary CTE and post-secondary college. Now, you might ask, where do I select all these selections? So there's multiple places, as you know, in TE, there's always multiple places to enter this information. So in this chart, which by the way, this is available in your chat box, so you can download this document. So you can see how they're color coded. So let's say, for example, literacy gains. So literacy gains under your update record, that's field 9 under your update record. That's for those of you who are doing paper form, just as it's a reference. For if you're not doing paper entry, this will be accessible under the student record, and I will be showing that next. But to see the literacy gain, you can see that is your orange markings. So network based program project goal, training milestone, acquire workforce rating skills, master courses, skill progressions, and so forth. Same thing with let's see, transition, say for example. So transition is basically enter job training, enter training program, enrolled in secondary, and transition to credit, and transition to credit non-transferred. So again, this is available under the PowerPoint in your chat box. So next slide. So here basically shows what is found under TE. So if you go to record student records, you'll find the record there. Obviously, if it's created. If it's not created, then I would suggest just go ahead and go to record students demographics, open the student record, and then go to the student records. You would have to create a new one, and once you create a new one, you can go ahead and enter this information. So as you can see here in the chart over here, so anything that is labeled with an L, that's for literacy gains. So under work results on the very top, you'll see that met work-based project goals. That's basically follows under literacy gain. On the other hand, for employment, enter employment, that's E, that will be retain a job, enter military, got a job. All right. And then let me go ahead and go to the next slide over here. So transition. So you basically have K-12 education, which is ABE, ASC, ESL, and those would go to have the choice of going to K-12, or you can have your non-credit CC, which is ABE, ASC, ESL, and those would go to for credit college, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and go to the next screen over here. So just a quick review of your services. So you have your short-term services, and those are supportive services, training services, and transitional services. These will be recorded in TE. This will not be, by the way, accessible under the forms. This will be under TE. So if you go to the in-program year record, those of you who do not know will be, I always suggest to go to record students demographics, because that's more of a central way to access any record for the student. So if you go to record students demographics, open that student record, you'll find under your navigator, which is located on the upper left, the in-program years record. So after we're done with this PowerPoint, I will go ahead and do the show and tell and show about where these options can be found. All right, so then you have your supportive records. Once again, this will be found under the in-program year record. So and then basically that basically covers transportation, childcare, dependent care, housing, personal needs. And then you have your training services, which they include on-the-job training, customized training, prerequisites for training, and youth occupational training skills trainings. Youth occupational skills trainings, sorry. Right. So then you have your transition services, which basically that would be for attending employment, enrolling in college, accessing designated pre-employment transition services. All right, so that will be my PowerPoint. So I'm going to go ahead and switch to TE now. So let me go ahead and minimize here. Can everybody see my TE screen, please? Let me know. Give me a thumbs up if you do. Very good. Thank you. All right. So as Adrian mentioned, we're using the Rolling Hills database. For those of you who don't know, Rolling Hills database is a fictitious database that we use for training. You're welcome to use that. How do you access the training, the fictitious database? Just on the top when you
Oscar, I'm sorry to interrupt you. We still see your PowerPoint.
Oh, do you? Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the heads up here. Do a new share over here. All right. So how about right now?
Yes, I can see it.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. So again, we're using the Rolling Hills database. How do you access the Rolling Hills database? Under your login screen for TE, instead of your server, California, say, for example, you're going to click on this button menu and choose Rolling Hills. The fictitious agency number, because we need an agency in order to log in, it's 4908. And I'm going to be using administrator1 at rhas.org. That stands for Rolling Hills Adult School. Again, that's our fictitious database. You can enter administrator 1 to administrator 60, I believe it is. Password will be admin, so short for administrator, admin. All right, very good. So we're talking about, doing your selections over here for, workplace outcomes and transitions. So let me go ahead and close these windows over here. So 1 second here. So close pages. All right. So from your TE, you can access, you remember how I said record students demographics? That will be more of a central way to access any record for your student. Keep in mind, we're using the fictitious database over here. So this is all fictitious. I'm going to go ahead and click on the first record displayed over here. So once I click on the record, you see that you have your navigator on the upper left. Within the navigator, you have the two areas that I want to address. One will be in program years. Basically, in program years means the years that the student is active and then your student records. So your student records is basically where everything, for those of you who are familiar with your entry and update record, that's where the information goes under student records. So let's go ahead and start under student records here. So this fictitious record happened to have multiple, records. So I have the choice of either entering, my options under the last record reported. So that's 11/30/2023, or create a new one. So either way, you would go ahead and click on those pencil icons to enable the information. Anything for goals, which, as you know, goals are very important to enter, whether you're entering through the paper form or e-test or importing. That's very important. That will determine your primary goal and your secondary goal. That will determine your point of entry to the point of action. So maybe in the chat box, tell me at what point are you entering your entry information, and at what point are you entering your update information? Is this, more guided towards the entry of the student, and that's when you use the entry, and the exit of the student, that's when you use the update, or perhaps you use that pre-test and post-test to enter the entry information under the pre-test and the post-test information with your update. So just let me know, just to get a little bit of a census here of what it's being done. All right, so there's multiple ways. There is no really ruled or anything of that, as long as you collect that demographic information. So we're at the point of entry of the student, whether that is your orientation, through the orientation process, or through the first test, the pre-test that you are given. So that will determine the goals that the student is to enter to the program with, and then sometime during the course of the student going from one level to the other, or with the same class, you want to go ahead and enter that update information. Hopefully will show how the student has updated their goals and how they have achieved some of their goals. That's the whole intent, whether that is on your post-test or towards the exit of the program, or the ending of that particular term or class. All right, so that's where you enter your goals under student records, and then under results. If we click on that pencil icon, here you have your work results. Got a job, increased wages, retain a job. Remember, we saw this screenshot under the PowerPoint. You also have your adult education results, whether the student earned a high school diploma. Very important to select. This is what Adrian was saying about becoming potentially a post-test. If it's marked as earned high school diploma, that could potentially be your post-test for the student. Then you also have personal results, and let's see. Then you have also services and skills. So we're going to go ahead and scroll down to that. Then you have career services, workforce services, which is what we're covering as well. Within that, you have communication, thinking skills, and so forth. Now, this is one of the sections that you are to enter. The other section where you enter this information will be under your in-program year, as I said. So let me go ahead and close this tab, and I'm going to go up to in-program years. So again, in-program years refers to the years that the student is being active under. So as long as there is any record that is entered for the student, any record except your demographic, as you know, does not create activity. It just creates a demographic record. You would have to have anything that contains a date, meaning, an entry, an update, hours, enrollment for class or program. All those will contain a date. That's when the system automatically creates this, in-program years record. So let's go ahead and click on this, on the 23-24 in-program year record. And here, once again, you have the pencil icons, which basically enables editing. So under barriers to employment, very important to enter. That will be a part of your entry as well. So you have cultural barrier, personal disabilities, English language learner, and so forth. Then you have your current workforce services. then you have the sections that we were discussing under the PowerPoint: training services received, transitional services received, supportive services received. So this will be the areas where you can mark this. All right. So once you mark this, where do you see this? Under what report do you see this? There's multiple reports, but one recommended report will be your CAEP summary. So we're gonna go ahead and close this. And we're gonna go to reports, state reports, California, and CAEP tables. So under CAEP tables, you have your summary, your outcomes, you have your services. That's important that we're going to be looking at. Enrolling by hours. That was something that it will be important for your 12 hours and so forth. So let's go ahead and generate this. We're just going to go ahead and stick with the default format. So no need to change anything over here. So we're going to go ahead and click generate. Again, keep in mind that we're using a fictitious database here. So let's see what we end up with. All right, very good. So here's your CAEP summary. So under your CAEP summary, you have your outcomes and you have your services. Notice that you also have your literacy gains, as Adrian was discussing previously. So here you have the divisions, for under your outcomes. You see how you have your enrollees, your total enrollees. You have those who achieve a HSD, HSC, post-secondary achievement. And then under services, of course, you have those services that have been received, supportive services, training services, and so forth. So on the side, on your navigator, you also have other reports that are included. So one of them will be your outcomes. So under your outcomes, you have your enter employment and wages, and you have your transition post-secondary outcomes. Again, remember, this is all fictitious database, but I'm just showing where some of this information is going. We also want to look at services. And at services, you have your transition, your training and supportive services, including it also includes career services. Then I also want to show you, let's see, program hours. Well, let's look at program hours so that you can see. Obviously, these are your NOVA hours. So these are divided by the program. What hours the program as a whole includes. And then you have by enrollees. Okay, so services enrollees by hours. Then you have your outcomes enrolling by hours. But one that I would recommend will be your your summary that will give you more of a general overview of what your workplace outcomes and your transitional outcomes are, and also the outcomes for CAEP outcomes. Those will be two reports I would suggest. So again, this information is fictitious, but it can be entered through your entry and update, and it could also be entered through ETOS if you enable some of these options to be entered under your templates. And you can also import these from your third-party system, whether you do ASAP or any other third-party system, or you can use our templates. That's another option. Those are available, through those methods. Any questions?
None in the chat so far. Just one that I addressed, but if you have a different stand on it, is it better to enter a new record or edit the most recent one? I suggested entering a new record to show growth, but if you have a different take.
And I do agree with that. There's no really right or wrong, answer on that, as long as you basically the, just like the word update suggests, right? So this should be the most updated information. So this is a record that perhaps was achieved. And let's just go with the achievement of a high school diploma, for example, right? So you want to go ahead and make sure that that update record reflects the day where the student achieved that high school diploma. If you have a current record already saved, then yes, you can go ahead and update that. If not, go ahead and create a new one. Again, there is no harm, of creating a new one. The word update suggests that you want to have the most updated information. So yeah, by all means, creating a new one, would be the best recommendation. Yes, good question. All right, so if we don't have any other questions, that basically concludes our part of the training. Again, if you have any other questions, please feel free to contact us at tech support at casos.org. Let me go ahead. I think I pasted there. So you can definitely send us an email or call us at 1-800-255-1036, option 2. I see another question by Mira. Interest in the Chiefs high school diploma after 7 months. Yes. So again, remember the question is, if a student enters as a grade 9, then achieves a high school diploma after several months, that outcome should be a new record. Yes, there should be a new record, because it should reflect that new status of the student, and it should also reflect that date of when the student achieved that high school diploma. So yes, that is correct. All right. So again, if there are no other questions, this concludes the managing CAEP data using TOPSpro Enterprise software session. And feel free to send us any email or call us at 1-800-255-1036, option 2, if you have any follow-up questions. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, so with that, I'm trying to catch up with the chat and make sure we don't have any other questions coming in. I do not see any. I'm going to go ahead and post the link for the evaluation today. We do appreciate everyone attending. We would love your feedback. There is, oops, I'm sorry. I see that I have it going to the wrong person. We do have part 2 tomorrow. I did drop this link earlier in the chat, but I will go ahead and drop it now. If you are unable to attend tomorrow, I did see that message come through. If you're unable to attend, we are going to ask if we have the ability to send the Zoom recording prior to remediation. Getting the recording remediated does take about 3 weeks. So we will ask for permission to send that prior to recording to those that are on the registered list. So go ahead and register, even if you know you can't attend, if you would like to receive the recording. So with that, I think that everyone has the evaluation. Adrienne and Oscar, thank you so much for the presentation today. I know tomorrow you have Martha and Luke will be doing part 2. With no other questions, Adrienne or Oscar, do you have anything that you would like to say before we close out?
Just thank you for attending, and please attend to the second part so that you can get your full session. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. And to follow with Oscar, thank you so much for attending. And again, yes, try and catch tomorrow's if you can. If you have any questions, never hesitate to call or email us. We're here to help.
Perfect. And someone did say they didn't see the link for the evaluation. So Jen, I just dropped it in the chat again. And hopefully you'll get that. You also will receive a follow-up email from CAEP, I think in 3 days, asking you to fill out the evaluation if you have not already done so. It does form how we do our professional development moving forward. So we really do appreciate any feedback you can give us. With that, we'll give you back the rest of your afternoon. You guys get an extra 28 minutes that you weren't planning on, so use it wisely. Go grab a bite to eat, maybe. And hopefully we'll see the majority of you tomorrow. Adrian and Oscar, thank you again so much. We couldn't do it without you.
Thank you so much
you,
for
everyone.
having us.
You're welcome. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Goodbye. Bye.